and they go back to that person that, look, Imam Abu Hanifa said this about it and you said this. So of course the person will be upset. So there were some people who got a little upset with it because of this reason, especially the judges in that time were upset with Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, that whenever people would have a judgment, they would go and ask him after the ruling was given. And he would say, no, that Qadi made this mistake. The other Qadi made this mistake. That Qadi made this mistake. People would go back and tell the judge that, sir, you made this mistake. And you made this mistake. Judges are upset that now people are finding out their mistakes. And they're going back and telling them what the fact is. So judges started complaining to the rulers that, look, this person is ruining everything. We give a judgment, and then he tells people the true ruling is something else, and the judge made a mistake. So that was another reason that some people were very upset with that situation and with documenting it at that time. Imam Malik rahimahullah was asked once that who is the most knowledgeable people that you have seen that came to Medina Munawwara. Imam Malik is the faqih of Medina Munawwara. So he was asked, who was the most knowledgeable person that you have ever met? And then the person mentioned some names. That was Ibn Abi Layla, Ibn Shubrama. These were the judges of that time. And he mentioned the name of Sufyan al-Thawri, and he mentioned the name of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah at the end. So Imam Malik rahimahullah replied that, why did you mention him at the end? He said, when he came to Medina Munawwara, some of our people who did not like him, this is what Imam Malik says, some of our people who did not like him, they went to him with some very strong objections. And he knew that they came to him only to object, not to solve the problem. So he says, I was present. This is Imam Muwaffaq rahimahullah, he's a Shafi'i, he narrates. He says, I was present, and those people who had prepared these masail for months before he came for Hajj, when they asked him a question, he told them the answer that was different than what they thought it would be, and he convinced them that this is the right answer, and not this. Then, when they were convinced, he told them this answer is wrong. And he gave them another answer, and he convinced them that was the right answer. When they were convinced, he told them this is wrong too. He convinced them of a third answer. When they were convinced, he told them the third one is wrong too. Then he gave them the fourth right answer. He says, you're talking about that man. When the reason Imam Malik rahimahullah mentions it, that he drives it so deep that the hadiths are common. But he says, look at this hadith and the meanings of the hadith and the driving of the ruling. That is the main point that fiqh is all about. Driving the ruling. And that driving of the ruling needs very sharp and deep understanding. Beside having all the material available of Quran and hadith, a very deep understanding about it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with that type of very, very extremely deep understanding of all situations. For example, there was a person whose name was At-Tusi. He did not like Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. One day, when Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and he was very close to Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, who was the ruler. So one day when Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah went to Abu Ja'far al-Mansur for something, At-Tusi said to his people, today I will make sure that I get him killed. And it was common in those days. Someone said something against the king and is gone. And people knew as a fact that Imam Abu Hanifa, he openly says things about them. Whenever they do something, he just comes up and he says that this is wrong and this is wrong about rulers. So, when Imam Abu Hanifa arrived, At-Tusi raised a question to Imam Abu Hanifa in that gathering, asking him that sometime the king, now Abu Ja'far is sitting there, sometime Abu Ja'far al-Mansur gives me an order to kill some people. Am I allowed to do it without questioning and just go ahead and fulfill the order? Or should I not fulfill his order when he gives me those type of orders of killing people? Now, the question is, if he says go ahead and do it, it's against the Sharia. How can you allow a person to kill people like this? And if he says If he says do it, it's against the Sharia. If he says don't do it, right there, this is what the Tusi wants. Next thing you will see, Imam Abu Hanifa is the next person that he will get the order to kill. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he says, at that time I remembered advice of my teacher Hamad. Subhanallah, look the closeness to the teacher and the importance of learning. He says, at that time I remembered one day we always used to go to Hamad, and he used to give us a lot of lessons and details of every lesson. One day we went to him, and I was a little disappointed that day, he says, that throughout the day he just told us one thing, and that was the end of the whole session programs, no more lessons. One thing he told us. He told us, when you are puzzled at a question, don't answer it, ask some other question to the person who's asking you. Fire it back. Ask a question to the one who's asking you. He said that was the lesson of the day. I thought I didn't learn too much that day. But that was the statement that I heard from my teacher Hamad that saved my life this day. He says, I thought, what should I do now? And I remembered what my teacher told me in these type of situations. So I asked the Tusi, that when Amir al-Mu'mineen gives you the order, does he give you a rightful order where that person really deserves to be killed, or he just gives up an order to kill people that don't deserve to be killed according to the Sharia? So of course Tusi had no choice but to say, no, Amir al-Mu'mineen always he gives the order according to the Sharia. So Imam Abu Hanifa says, always follow the Sharia. If he gives you orders according to the Sharia, then you should always follow the Sharia. That's it. This is type of understanding. There was, during his time, once a situation came up where a person got into a very difficult situation. Robbers got into his house. They robbed his house. They took most of the things from there. And one of the people, he knew who he was because he used to live in the neighborhood. That person knew that this person had recognized me. So he held him. We normally call it on a gunpoint, but of course with a knife. Asking him to take an oath that his wife will be divorced if he is going to mention his name, or anyone here, if he is going to tell anyone who we were. And any wealth that he owns, he will go in a sadaqah if he informs anyone about anything, about any person that was in this amongst the robbers. Now, next morning he gets up. He knows the man. He can't complain. He goes to the fuqaha, explain the situation to them, that they have robbed me in this way. And they took an oath from me that if I would mention any of their names, then my wife will be divorced. I have already lost my wealth, then I will even lose my wife. And my wealth will be sadaqah, which means even the house that I live in will go into sadaqah. So what should I do now? They said, if you mention the name, you're gone. It's a difficult situation. Finally, he went to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. He asked him what to do. He said, do you know, does this person come to a masjid at any time? He said, yes. Do you know when does he come to the masjid? He said, yes. Okay. Because he lives in the neighborhood. He says, go and complain that there are people who robbed my house, because the oath was if he would mention the name. People robbed my house and this is the situation. And then Imam Abu Hanifa explained to the police officers, people in charge in the neighborhood, that when he complains to you, the time that he tells you, don't ask him who the person was. He cannot say it. Let people leave the masjid one by one, and at every person ask him, was he the person? And he should say no if that wasn't the person. And if he is the person, he shouldn't say nothing. So their people are leaving one by one. So is he the person? No. Is he the person? No. Finally, is he the person? Okay, come with us.